Hello and good afternoon, all. We have gathered in this Zoom meet with an aim of conducting a small webinar. Sania and I, myself, Leslie, being the coordinators of the biography section of a college magazine, were given the task of finding individuals who are motivating and inspiring to the students whose life experiences can be great lessons, which will definitely help them in carving and shaping their future to live a fruitful life. So, in the presence of our college magazine editor, Ms. Elisa Austin, and also the other members, I heartily welcome our speaker, Mr. Paul Francis Kalarekal, who is a cricketer, writer, poet, who's published Enigma to Innocent Love, which is a collection of poems, and worked as cybersecurity ICT forensics auditor. Also tenured with the United Nations WFP, worked for the World Food Programme Emergency Telecommunications Cluster in Sierra Leone as IT specialist and also in Sweden. He has also worked in the peace and disarmament sector and has traveled to many countries for the same purpose. Also as a project manager for various IT infrastructure projects for Afghan police and Afghan army under the US Army IDIQ contacts. And I personally do have a relation with him. I am his niece and he is my mom's cousin. And right now he's looking after his mom and carrying out all her needs and being a responsible son. And he's still single. And rest of the details we'll get to know from him. Before that, I hand over to our college magazine editor, Miss Elisa Austin.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir. I am Elisa Austin, and I am the student editor of the college magazine this year. And on behalf of the entire magazine committee, I welcome you to this meeting, sir. This year, we are actually planning to organize the articles of the magazine into various sections. Sections such as sports, science, arts, literature, and biographies is one of the sections in our college magazine. And through the biography section, we actually plan to include articles in a question answer format by conducting interviews with personalities who are capable of providing inspiring messages that can motivate anyone who reads it, especially the youth and especially the students of our college. And people who can contribute to the society and can also motivate the youth to contribute to the society in which they live. And through the biography section, we actually aim to bring about a positive change in the way people think. And this is what makes the biography section different from the other sections in the magazine. And considering all the above requirements that we aim to accomplish in the biography section, we have found the perfect personality to interview and include an article in the college magazine. So once again, thanking you, sir, for joining our session. And with that, I would like to hand over the meeting back to Blessy. Thank you.
So thank you, Elisa. So now the session over to you, sir.
Thank you. I think I'm audible now. It's a privilege that the college has taken the courage to portray my work, my contribution to society, to my family. It starts with the family, and then it goes to the neighbor, then to the college, university, and the community where I'm living and the institutions I serve. But what I would like to say is that anything you do and which brings you on top does not develop overnight. It starts with the conception, then it's the childhood, then it's the school and college, and then when you start working. So I had a very hard life, that is from the time of my birth till my school, college, and all those things, because we were 6 brothers and sisters. So it was survival, basically, to survive in a situation where everything was scarce and we had to grab, we had to snatch at times, and that is what makes you tougher, brings endurance in you, brings patience in you. So whatever you see today is the hard work which I put in my life. So I would start with my childhood. I started when I was in the school. I started playing various games and had a professional outlook towards cricket. So I used to, like, from morning I used to coach. Then under DP Azad, basically DP Azad, if you know, became very famous overnight when he produced, within the Indian team, there were five players. We had Kapil Dev, Yograj, Ashok Malhotra, Chetan Sharma, and then the next generation started coming up. And all those people who were associated with DP Azad were the ones who brought the 1983 World Cup also. So I had the privilege of playing with those people. I had the privilege mostly playing with Chetan Sharma, who was my age. We used to travel by bus daily from the place where we were living and up to the stadium. So that is my association. And after I uh, contributed a lot into cricket in terms of my own professional career, in which I played under 15, under 19, the college, university. After that, I played for All India Public Sector, that is when I was working in ISRO. At that time, we didn't have all these big paying events were not there, and we had to represent public sector undertaking, that is the government, and we were part of public sector, and we used to be employed by public sector undertaking. So I was in ISRO. So I worked 16 years in ISRO. While I was working in ISRO, I don't say I might have contributed much towards whatever I am being showcased today as the person who has worked for the humanitarian cause, or a civil military observer, or an ICT head for various projects in Afghanistan or in Tanzania or in Sierra Leone. So where I started was from 2004 when I left ISRO, and that the main reason for me to leave ISRO was my father's death, and that, like, grieved me, and I didn't like to work anymore in the organization, and I left that organization. And then I started. The first instance was working for America Online, and where we used to be monitoring chat rooms, and I saw how the youth today were being misused or were being targeted by pedophiles and all those things. And we were the ones who were monitoring the chat rooms, and we used to be informing these to the US organizations who handled crime. So that was short lived. After that, I was sent to Tanzania, where I did the ICT backbone for the country. And then I came back, and then in fact, I had to come back. Whenever I came back, there was incidents at home. My mother fell or something happened, and my focus went towards her. And each time it was like my focus was always there. Today also, my focus is towards there, because she is very serious and again in the ICU. So my focus in the last 20 years since my father died has been towards her. So whenever I come back to India, I have an incident, something happens, then I'm not able to move back to that particular assignment which I was doing. So in 2009-10, I was given the first task of going into Afghanistan, where my position was to monitor and evaluate about 17 universities. It was called, I was working for Washington State University, and it was an USID project. And my purpose of that project was to train the trainers within the organization of all these colleges. But when I ever arrived, there was an incidence of some cyber attacks and all those things, which I could detect, and which was happening from Kabul University, and that impacted some organizations in UK. And I was like the person who had uh, uh, unearthed that particular episode, and I was like I became a blue boy for all those agencies which said, okay, he's outstanding. And this is not basically, we don't, this is, at that time it was classified. Today, even if I say, they don't mind about it. So after that, I was like put into the NATO training mission. The sole purpose of NATO training mission at that point of time was to train the Afghan police and Afghan army personnel into countering attacks against them and making sure that they were able to withstand the pressure of the Taliban and all extremist elements. So we were building bases for them. We were making the ICT backbone for each base. So every US base adjacent to that area was taken over by the US Army, and it was developed for Afghan Army and Afghan police bases. And our prime aim was first to set up the bases, then second we put up the ICT backbone, and then we trained them and we had the help desk set up. So I did that. Then we set up cell towers and gave them connectivity also. So that was what I was doing. And during that episode, there was some kidnapping issues and all those things. And they had to pull me out of those places. And in 2012, I came back and I got trained by the UN in Sweden and Germany. And from that time onwards, I've been in the UN emergency roster. It is called Emergency Telecom Cluster. Emergency Telecom Cluster is basically a UN part which gets activated. That means if you understand UN has got a cluster system. Based on that, the Emergency Telecom Cluster, which comes under FITTEST, FITTES, FITTEST, and World Food Program. It's a segment of that particular program under which I got trained, and we are the first respondents. That means the Emergency Telecom Cluster and the Logistic Department, which are both under World Food Program, gets activated. And within 72 hours of any disaster across the world, we are the first ones who are airlifted and put to this place. And we establish communication which enables all the aid agencies. That means when I spoke about UN cluster, you should go and, like, as you're all students, I would suggest that all of you go and learn about the cluster system within the UN and which are the organizations. You've got WHO, you've got IOM, you've got UNHRC, you've got World Food Program, you've got UN as one part, and then you've got FAQ, that is food associated to food, and then IOL. All these organizations and UNICEF, they get activated, and the first respondents, when they get activated and they set communication, the organizations which come under UN and secondaries are organizations like you've got USID, you've got UK ID, you've got Norway ID, that is NRC, DRC, MSB. All these organizations are the ones who fund the UN and make it UN. That means UN in itself does not have those funds. So these organizations from different countries pay and send roster members. So I was a roster member from Canada, that is Canadian Military Organization, and MSB, that is Swedish Civil Military Organization, that is MSB, it is called in English, whereas they call it as the Swedish Civil Contingency. So we were trained and we were roster members who gave technology to the cluster. Okay, so I was trained there. And since then, I've been working under the roster. So being in the IT, our roster is the widest. So it's very difficult to get a roster. So I got for Ebola response, I was there. And under that response, I was on the top. I was the highest paid IT specialist in East Africa at that point of time. That is basically what I did, what has given me a platform to perform. One. Second is to establish myself. Third is to make sure that I delivered also. See, you can establish yourself, you may reach a position, but deliver it. You should be able to deliver, and you should be able to meet the expectation of the stakeholders, the host organization, the host country also. If you're able to meet all these criteria, then you're successful. Whereas when I went for the UN operations, I saw that there were about 60 to 70% who came after 45 days. They used to get R&R, that is rest and recuperation. They used to go there. They used to have a high-end life. But the best part is, out of those also you get people who work very hard, who are able to deliver, who are able to go to the remotest part. That means you don't even have a proper public toilet and all those things. You have to walk a mile, and the first prerequisite is that you should be able to lift about 40 to 50 kgs. Then only you are enrolled for this particular task. That means you have to walk a lot, you have to hike a lot, you have to take the equipments. We are supposed to be taking our equipments, that is the portable VSAT and the radio equipments and the satellite equipment. So we are able to launch these things in areas which are very remote. So it is a difficult task. It looks good. They say that you get the highest paid and all those things, but it is very difficult to sustain and to work in this situation where you do not get the basic things which, as today, if you are in Kerala or in any place which is a metropolitan city, you don't get that thing. If you're in Africa, if you're in Afghanistan, you're put in Pakistan. And what I felt very sad was my experience when I was working for Ebola responses. India contributes to the maximum number of medical professionals, the IITians, the IIMs, and the nurses. But when I went to West Africa to do the Ebola response, it was sad that out of 2,000 doctors I trained into communication, there was not even a single, and they used to like say, we don't see a single Indian coming in the last 2 years for Ebola response. So what is happening in India is that we have got a brain drain, which is into high end, they are into money. They do not contribute into Africa where there is such issues where you should go. But when I went to Tanzania the first time, what I saw was Indians are going there, getting cashew nuts in containers. They are getting gold out of Sierra Leone and all these countries, and they are coming here and saying, "We have got this Malabar gold and all those things, and we are giving food to people." So that is something which is wrong, which is happening, and we try to show that these are the organizations which are doing humanitarian cause. But what you don't understand is that these are the organizations who have got into Africa, milked them up, and coming here and getting all the gold and silver and the diamonds, and setting up their own organizations across India, and not contributing to the cause of those people from there where you're getting all those things. So bad experience, as I said, there was not even a single doctor in Sierra Leone who was working, who was an Indian. I had Pakistanis, I had Nepalis, I had Burma, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Solomon Islands, Philippines, Malaysia, everywhere, but not even a single Indian. And I was the only one Indian who was contributing to the emergency telecom cluster. Because if you just do a survey, you will see in West Africa, Indian Airtel, which is there, we have got 5G. So what happens when we have 3G, that the entire equipment is taken and launched into Africa. So what happens is that when Airtel established this in West Africa, when Ebola came, the entire staff left the country and came to India. And we were the ones who set up the communication at that time. And we used the Airtel towers and equipments and made them serviceable. That means we started making them, we were able to use them. So these are some hard facts which as youth you may not understand, But you should understand that when we are trying to contribute, we should start from our own self. That means when Indians do this brain drain is happening, it is also affecting the Indians who are living in our rural areas. For example, a doctor is trained in India, an IITian is trained in Indian institution, and what is happening is that these people are living India, and if you go to the remotest part of each town in India, you don't get a doctor, proper doctor, you don't get an engineer, you don't get the basic facilities which the same people are giving to the rich and the high class people in US or Europe and all those things. So when you serve your country and serve those countries where the situation is harsh, bad, then you become a better person. You develop yourself, also develop those people who are living in very adverse situations, like in Afghanistan today. Whatever we did in Afghanistan has been overrun, overtaken, everything has been destroyed. But for 8 to 20 years, those people, if you ask the children, everybody, they were very happy when we were able to give them clear drinking water, education to every girl, let it be college, university. I will give you a small example which will help you understand. The women in Afghanistan are very good, especially in studies and work also. So when we had this training of the trainers, at that time was the first time I understood that in these 17 universities, we had about 90 teachers I trained, and out of that, 80 were women only, and they were like extraordinary. IQ was very high. The same thing when we did the Afghan police and Afghan army also. When we were training the women, their percentage or pass percentage was about 85 to 90%. Today they may be crushed and all those things, but their percentage and effectiveness and efficiency is unquestionable when we see that they performed extraordinary when they were given, because the hardship was there. If it's not like India that the school is established. For example, in Afghanistan, each day a student gets 2 hours to study. That means there are 5 to 6 shifts. That means it starts from 7 to 9, 9 to 11, 11 to 1 p.m. So the school works this way. There are 5 to 8 shifts in each school because the population density and the teaching thing is, and the institutions are totally different. So that is why I say when I work in these areas, it is very good. I like it, and also it is very good. Now I've discussed about my work, I've discussed about my hardships and all those things. I'll put some few minutes into my cricket career in terms of coaching that. I was working in you might have heard of St. Columba's, and one of its unit is St. John's. It is founded by the Irish brothers. And I was given the task of developing this school, and I started coaching the students, and it was from under 10 to under 16. So the first group used to come who were 8 years old. That means we used to start the selection process in September, and then they were for the next year. So about 120 students I handled for about 4 years. And after that, I had to leave that assignment because of my father's death. So a lot of things were attributes to my life, and how I changed had to do with my father's death. So how he was sick and all those things. And today also it is attributed like to my mother's sickness and how I redefined it. So that is one part. So cricket as such, I was very successful during my time. I coached some of the good cricketers. One of them played for India and IPL also, Gurkirat Singh. And then one of the best golfers, that is Aditya Sindhu, who is the top golfer in India. What happens is they start off with playing cricket, and then we had under the Camp Australia project, KPS Gill, if you know the Super Cup of Punjab. I was with him and Cedric D'Souza, who was the captain of the Indian hockey team. We combined, three of us were the core members for training under the Camp Australia program. And during that program, Ajitesh Sandhu was in our program in which we gave him fitness training. And I used to, because his father was a IS officer, and he said, my son needs a special training. So I said, okay. So evening from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I used to give him personal training in the school premises itself. And within 4 years, he was a top India player in golf at that time. So there are some good times in which those people whom I have trained have done very well. And the saddest part is that out of this 120, 90% of the students who were very outstanding cricketers used to quit cricket when they reached 8th and 9th class. And I think all the students who are in your college, if you ask them, they will go into a place where they'll say, okay, I want to become a cricketer. So what happens is that in our life, our goal keeps changing, and goal keeps changing for a better goal. So when we are in our primary school, we say we need to become this, but we want to become a cricketer. Okay. After that, when we reach a level and we see that we are not uh, outstanding in that particular thing, then our goal changes. Our goal also changes with peer attributes. That means my friend says, okay, Blessy is there. Elsie says, okay, I'm doing this. Why don't you do that? Okay. So our goal keeps changing each time from our primary school, secondary school, college. And then it keeps on changing when we are in a college and when we go for professional studies also. So these things keep changing. In my life also, it kept on changing from being in the semiconductor industry. It came down to the humanitarian cause, military cause, civil discipline, and all those different goals were changed. But goals may change, but the person as such per se will not change. That means the qualities that I have never changed. It's the same. It's going on, and I have not changed till now in terms of what I do, what I deliver, and what the commitments I have in life. It has always been the same. Okay, so that is something which is lacking today in our youth. If you look at my poems, which I started writing after my father's death, it kept on changing. If you read from the first poem till the last poem is touching, where after that I have not written. It's about how the education system within India has been impacted by the EWS. Okay, it's a word, simple three-word, education, which is for every downtrodden. If the education system is for everybody is equal, that is very good. But if a student is put into a Doon school or a high Columbia, for example, St. Columbus school, where you got the richest people and this person is a very poor person. So what happens when they start studying? What happens? So ethos to friendship, the poem which you read will make you understand how a person who has got all the qualities, the good qualities, is a good sportsman, he's a good artist, all those things is destroyed because that person lives with a rich kid, and the rich kid is not having all those traits. So how that student gets destroyed is what ethos to friendship. Read. If you read it, you'll understand why the EWS student should not be put in very rich institutions. For example, St. John's, the Carmel convents, and all those things, because the student will destroy themselves. And it is my personal experience. It is the children whom I was sponsoring, the Adivasi children, who were I sponsored when they were just 10, 12 years old. And when they reached this institution and how they changed themselves, how they started becoming superficial, how they changed a lot of things. It is good for everybody to be educated, to have the same platform, the same testing standards. But when we are putting a person who is extremely poor in high institutions like St. Columbus or St. John's, how it impacts those children is what I was trying to emphasize here. And based on that is what I have written about Enigma to Innocent Love. I think if you read that, you will understand what is the ethos, how the child during the various stages, that is when the child is in the KG, the first class, the second class, fifth class. From the fifth class onwards, the child is impacted up to the puberty, and that is where the base and the foundation of a child is, which is enhanced, and how it reaches when that child reaches the secondary education and then the college. So living in a superficial life, that means where he or she tries to emulate what a rich kid is, and those traits are getting into that, where she learns or he learns cheating, how to say lies, how to cover up for things which he or she has not done, or try to cover up facts and do things which are wrong. So that is something which I would say, I why I wrote that poem is because of my personal experience with children. There were about 10 children I trained, and they were all studying in Carmel Convent School or St. John's. And how I felt that these children had changed completely. They were very good musicians, they were basketball players, and they changed totally. Like it is 360-degree. If it was normal, I would say, okay, it's normal because these children have entered puberty. But when I saw a 360-degree reverse effect, that is what I said. And this is happening across India in all the high-end education institution where the poor children are put, saying that, okay, you will get a quality education. And it is with facts. If you check that 90% of those children do not, when they pass 10th, they do not get admission in the 11th grade. I saw this thing impacting when I go to these hospitals where my mother is treated, that is Fortis or all these big hospitals, where I see all these poor children whom I have seen in Carmel Convent or in St. John's. They are working in the lowest grade. That means they are doing the cleaning job, they are doing the cleaning job within patients, giving them sponge bath, cleaning the toilets. That is where I felt that the same thing happened during my mother's treatment. I saw those children doing all those menial jobs because they did not clear the 10th grade with those marks which gave them entry to 11th class. That means they were not able to clear those grades and go to even the counseling section. So that is very bad. I think this much is enough, and I would. There's a part in which you need to ask me questions, and I will answer those questions. And I think the time constraint is also there, so you can ask me questions. Based on that, I will be giving you replies.
Thank you, sir, for the session. So we will start with the questions.
Hello. Yes, so you have said that you have worked in several countries. So like how are the working conditions in India different from other countries? Like what makes India different from other countries?
The first part is the competition. That means when I'm competing in India, I'm competing with 100,000 people. When I'm competing for a job in US, UN agencies, again, it is 1 to 100,000. Okay. But when I'm working in countries like Afghanistan or Pakistan or in Nepal or in Africa, my expertise are very high. So you may not find too many people of the same grade, same qualifications, the skill sets. So in India, the skill sets are very highly defined in terms of manpower. That means the manpower that I commend, that means the skill sets that I have got in India, you may find 100 people like me within a small zone. So the competition is very high. That is why people like me, as I said, in my roster, I may get the roster positions after 4 or 5 years only. So that is the competition which I face when I'm working in India. Then there are some parameters which we need to be very specific. That is the quality and quantity preferences. When I'm working with the Americans, or if I'm working in the Gulf, the working standards in terms of having upholding quality parameters is very, very high. Whereas when we are working in India, we may be the best, but we compromise on quality and quantity. Okay, we need to do this. We can do it this way also, so nobody will notice. So that is why you might have heard every day bridges fall, this fall, that fall. There is a lot of issues. Whereas when I was working with the Europeans, or when I was working in Bahrain or in Sweden, the quality parameters are very hard and fast. You need to meet all those quality parameters when you're delivering. Whereas in India, we don't have all those parameters. We say, okay, you need to follow these things. And if this does not happen, you just do it that way. You have to deliver. The thing is that if it's the project has to be delivered for 1 million, even if it is done in this much, no problem. But there, the professionalism in terms of quality is very, very high. So that is what I understand is the difference. But in terms of getting a job in India, it's very difficult because there is a stiff competition when it comes to skill set.
Thank you, sir, for that. Any other question?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I have a question. The youth of India today, they are innovative, they have talents, but they lack a guidance that is required to put this talent for a much greater purpose, like to serve society and all. As you said, they do not know how to deliver their talent. So, how do you suggest that the youth today um, suggest deliver their talent to contribute to the society?
What I understand is that with the advent of mobile phones, our talents, we don't cross check our talents. That means we harness our talents with our mobile screen time, and we believe that what we see, what we hear on the social platforms, that is the right thing. I remember in 1980s when we had the first Mandal Commission, in which the students were the ones who took up the mantle, and there was one person who sparked that thing. He put on kerosene on himself in Delhi and burnt himself. Okay. And it was totally students' movement and how the government was overthrown. Today, you see so many irregularities in everything, but the student community is not at all interested in coming up and protesting or even reacting. That is political things. But why the students are not able to perform is how much time they are putting on the screen. For example, I'll give you a small example of today. I was sitting in front of the ICU, and there were 100 people passing in front of me, going left, right. There were patients, there were the attendants, there were the staff. All of them had their mobile in my hand, and I was the only person sitting and watching them going up and down. So the surveillance part, that means we are not capable of making ourselves secure in terms of looking at those people who are watching us, one. Second, who are passing us, we are not seeing that. Where we are walking, we are not seeing. We are looking at the mobile and trying to scroll through different social medias, or for example, the messages, they are all official. For example, if the hospital staff is walking around and the doctors are walking around, they are all scrolling through the mobile. So what has happened is that we are spending screen time on our social media or our work. Everything is, we have enslaved ourselves into this particular social media, and our memory power has gone. For example, earlier, when I used to have a phone, I used to remember 10 to 20 numbers. For example, if you ask me my mother's number, I don't know. My brother's number, I don't know. But yes, most of them know their numbers and certain numbers. So what happens is that we are not proactive. We are not even active. We are like superficially active in a life which is going passing by, and we are just walking through that particular path and not reacting. When you don't react, then the problem starts, and that is what is the problem with our youth in India today. For example, everybody was looking at the launch of this Moonyan and all those things, Chandrayaan, but till today, nobody has tried to see that the entire episode of 1 to 2 hours, there was this cartoon thing which was coming down and going down. Can you imagine how is Chandrayaan going to send live pictures? That means if you have to take pictures of Chandrayaan, the, the capsule, there should be another Chandrayaan to take that capsule picture. It is not happening. Now the landing equipment lands, and after that, there is this roller which goes out. That will take pictures. That is the first picture. So what was the whole world or Indians doing was looking at this thing going up and down, and not even understanding that this is just an animation which is being shown to us. What has really happened, none of us has seen it, but we were all seeing it. We were spending our time on that, and there were so many things happening around us. We were not even human enough to look at those things. So this is what is happening to our lives. We are not looking at things which are happening actually in front of us, and we are looking at things which somebody is trying to show us, and we are trying to spend our time into that because we are getting free airtime, we are getting free data. Now, I'll give you a small example. We are having 5G facilities. You go to US, you go to Canada, you go to Australia, you go to New Zealand, you go to UK. Are you aware that there the telecom is working on 3G today also? So we are being fooled that we are getting 5G. I'll give you a small example if you get time. The youth today does not even know that what is the download speed and upload speed on in his mobile. So the basic thing is technology wise is that if you're getting 25 Mbps as your download, your upload should be at least 1/4. That means 25. That means you should be at 7.5. What is happening is that our upload is at 0.5. So that is the basic problem we have got. Our tele density is very high. That means on when we are getting 5G and we are getting at 1000 Mbps, it is being shared between 10,000 people. So what will be the equation? It will be like 1 Mbps or 1.2 or 0.5 Mbps will be the upload. So education does not mean that we understood. Our education should be centric to what is right for us. So if you go to Dubai and you are living in Dubai, you will get 6 GB of data. Whereas here you will get every day 2 GB, 10 GB. You go to UK, you go to England, you will get 1 GB or 2 GB or 6 GB for per month. So when you reach your home, you get your data. So when you get free data wherever you're going, so what you'll do, you'll spend 2 GB using on things which are not supposed to be seen by you also or even observed by you. So what is our youth doing today? Our youth is spending 90% of their time on consuming that 2 to 4 GB data every day, seeing the YouTube, going to WhatsApp, watching every video. So that is what is destroying, that is what is misguiding our youth not to see things which are right. For example, if you just check, you will find Geo has given uh, a reading of how much they made, where how much GB was spent on the Chandrayaan. That means how many people watched and how much data was spent at that time. And second is that when we are using our mobile, we need to put on SD. For example, we are having this meeting. If you go and click on HD, that means you will take up all the bandwidth and you will not be able to communicate properly, and your mobile data will get consumed. So the basic thing what I'm trying to say is that we need to become human. We need to look at those things which are in front of us and forget the things which are being portrayed and shown on the social media or the mobile, and try to understand that this thing is not life. Life is beyond all these things. I was looking at one of the poet who was saying that food will not be delivered by data. So it's in a Hindi, it's a Hindi poet who is telling about the disadvantages of our data which we are doing, which we are using each day. Uh, uh, but more than that, it's focus. Focus is what is lacking today in the youth today. We get educated, we get 99.9, all those things. Whereas when we were educated, uh, for example, nobody could get 100% marks in political science or in sociology, which I did, or public administration. Today, if you see the result, you will get 100% in political sciences, you will get 100% in sociology. That is what is shows that the education system has been demined. That means when I passed in my first graduation, I might have got 52%. And the topper at that time used to get 76 or 77%. Whereas today we are getting this youth is getting 99.9% and all this. So that shows that we are lacking in our education system. The very education system which is supposed to empower us has uh, made us made our qualifications very low in terms of our achievements. We will say, okay, we get 99. So the other person will say, I got 100%. Whereas when we were friends and we were four of us sitting, one person will say, I got 51. The second one will say, I got 54. The third one will say, I got 58. Or the fifth one will say, I got 49%. Whereas today, if you sit with four people, they will say, I got 99.1. The second one will say 99.2. The third one will say 99.8. So that education has got nothing to do with your achievements in life, or what skill set you developed, what experience you got. All those things is missing.
Thank you, sir. I think we have come to an end. So for the closing notes, I call upon Rizwana.
I'm audible.
Yeah, you're audible, Rizwana.
Thank you, sir, for make the section grant. On the behalf of our college magazine, mainly in the biography section, I extend heartily thanks to our chief guest, Sir Paul, sir, who spared time from his busy schedule to grace this occasion. And your words inspired us a lot. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you, Elisa.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Elisa, for make part of our section, our college magazine editor. And thank you all other coordinators, Leslie, Sania, and others who asked the questions first. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rizwan.
So I thank once again everyone for joining, and especially you, sir, for spending your valuable time with all of us in this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bliss. Have a nice day. I just spoke to my mother when she was in the ICU. When I went, I said I have to go for this meeting. And she told me that in her Bible, when she is reading this thing, there is a small flyer which Blessie's mother had sent us after the death of her sister. And she told me that I remember her. So what I'm trying to say, a person who is or low on sodium, that means sodium, if you are low in sodium, you don't have proper memory also. That person also remembers your sister. And I would say that that is something which I felt very touching when my mother told that her name is this, and I said, "Arey, how do you remember that?" She says every day in the Bible, when I'm reading, I see this photograph. Thank you once again.
That's so great. Thank you.